video as well.
Of course.
Well, I picked a room with the sorriest lighting in the house for this, but the most convenience and the most privacy.
Ah.
Oh, well.
All right, then. I am ready to push the record button. Are you ready?
Anytime, sir.
So we are on in 3. Yeah. We're on 3, in 2, and 1. Welcome back, everyone, to another exciting episode of Aaron's Opinion. Tonight, Chris Carroll joins us. He commented on a post. And then when I started talking to him, I knew I had to ask my question, who is Chris Carroll? Like I said, this podcast is for adults and is explicit. Speak from the bottom of your heart and soul. Tell everything you want to tell. And if you don't want to tell something, don't. But your hour to tell me your life story starts now. I will interject as I need to. Go.
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. My name is Chris Carroll, and I am a grateful man today. Started out, I grew up in lower middle class, South Carolina, as if you couldn't tell from my accent. And one thing about me is I've always been charity-minded. You know, my first memory was my father and I, my father riding a bone shaker bicycle and me riding a unicycle 4 miles for the March of Dimes. So I've always been tuned to service. Let me go forward a little bit and let you know that I am impaired. I lost my eyesight about 5.5 years ago. I'm not completely blind, just mostly. And this is a culmination of a life's worth of service. I am also a recovering alcoholic, which by the grace of God in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I have managed to remain sober for 23 years, almost 24. In October 31st, it'll be 24 years. I have survived a lot in my life, but many suicides in the family and other deaths, and also other problems. But I'll begin, like I said, in childhood. My father was a bully. He was the type, his self-made man, United States Marine, and so was my mother. My mother actually wore combat boots. So I was pretty strict upbringing and a pretty brutal upbringing. If I did something wrong or got in trouble somehow, Walter would correct me with the end of his fist. Walter being my father. I got into drinking and drugging and generally being a bad sort very, very early. I was admitted at the age of 15 to an institution for adolescent behavior problems. And turns out I was just a drunk, but they didn't know that when they admitted me. However, there was always a search for spirituality. There was always a search for something different. I was an extremely angry young man, and I really have no idea why. I have thought and prayed and inventoried and wrote and journaled. I still cannot figure out why I was so pissed off all my life. But during my teen years, nothing worked well in my life. Of course, I didn't work well in my life. I was a common denominator in all my problems. And then at the tender age of 15, after I had gotten out of the behavioral center and they realized my problem was straight alcoholism, my sister blew herself away. She shot herself with a .45 in the heart. Kathy would become the first of many bodies I stepped over in my journey to sobriety and spirituality. Of course, that set me back some. And then came the day I joined the United States Army. And I actually went Army Airborne. I was one of those idiots that jumped out of planes. Flying perfectly straight and level, it's a good time to take that first step. But I did it for one reason and one reason only, is a way to get back at my father. All my life I had heard, if you're going to join the military, join the real military. Only the Marines are the real military. Marines always go in first, you know. So I joined the Army, and as I graduated from jump school, I grabbed my daddy's head and I held him close to my chest, so all he saw was those jump wings. And I'm like, Walter, do you understand what this means? Do you really get what has happened here? He said, yeah, you're elite, you're special forces, you're this, you're that. I said, no. It means I clear the jungle for the Marine Corps to come in. They airmail me. I don't have to have a ship. And that's the whole reason I went airborne, was that crowning moment. About this time, I should mention that wife number one had. She wasn't wife number one at that time, but she was pregnant at that time. And that's another reason I joined the Army. I didn't have $10,000 to give for the birth of a baby. So, you know, without options, might as well join the Army. I ain't doing nothing else. So I joined the United States Army, and I did okay. There was a lot of disciplinary actions, but generally I had a good personality and I was funny, so I got by with it. And then came a divorce, another spiral down into drinking. From the age of 15 on, I was sober off and on. I decide, you know, this really ain't working, or if I keep doing this, she's going to leave me, or, you know, I can't really afford another car accident or anything like that. So I'd quit drinking for a while, but eventually the monster crept back up and bit me. And naturally, wife number one decided to leave me. Imagine that. She wouldn't put up with a drunk. A mean drunk at that. So she left me, and I went through and very quickly found victim number two. And yes, I said victim number two for a reason. I didn't take a wife, I took a hostage. Well, victim number two wasn't going to put up with it forever either. So after the birth of two children, she decided it was time to end this thing. So we did. And this was about 1997 or 8. And that continued the downward spiral until October 31st, 1999. I should mention, too, that I had a brother to die during this time. No, I'm sorry, Wally died in 2001. So anyhow, I got taken to jail 3 times in one 24-hour period, a record. I was in and out of jails, you know, drunk, nothing major, drunk in publics, maybe a little fighting, a little whatever. But October 31st, 1999, I decided it'd be a great idea to assault a cop. And the cop didn't see things my way. I hit him 3 times before he decided to strike back. He was a big old boy. And he was like 6'8", about 350 pounds of solid muscle. And I weighed all of $160. So needless to say, it did not end well. And he beat me and stuffed me and cuffed me and all that good stuff. I woke up in the jail cell the next morning, and he came rapping on the bars. And of course, I had the greatest hangover ever because, man, I've been taken to jail for drunk in public 3 times. And he proceeded to say, "You had a hell of a night last night, didn't you, Carroll?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm guessing it didn't end so well. The night was pretty good, but the ending kind of sucked." And he said, "Come here." So he took me to the interrogation room and showed me on video what I had done. Well, he said, "I can buy you every day of 10 years in the state pen with what I've got right here, this little video. Or you can do something about your drinking today." Well, I naturally decided that I was going to do something about my drinking. So October 31st, 1999 is the date of my sobriety. I'm a Halloween baby. And although the drinking ceased, the behavior wasn't exactly right. I have made every mistake a man can make. During this time, like I was saying, my brother died of non-small cell metastasized lung cancer. And I celebrated his death with a cigarette. Not really a smart guy. So I, made a living, made a life, started a business, did all those things necessary. But I was still dissatisfied with life. However, I was coming to know a spiritual way of life, and it was getting better. And I did the confession step where you admit your faults to another, and the relief just rolled off of me. For the first time in my life, I was able to relax my shoulders. They were always up around my ear, and I never knew why. However, when I got the garbage out of me, they relaxed. I thought something was wrong. I talked to the man I gave my confession to, and he said, "Oh, no, that's normal." I thought I was going to have to go to the hospital because there was something wrong. And I then met victim number 3. And, well, that went as planned. I didn't drink again, but I did everything but drink. And all along, I continued acts of service. Things like when Hurricane Andrew passed through, I arranged with 3 other Red Crosses and the late great Senator Strom Thurmond to send a C-130 down to the victims of Andrew. Well, the Myrtle Beach chapter, which I was involved with, the Greenville chapter of the Red Cross, and Charleston chapter of the Red Cross, packed this C-130 full of goods and services, water, whatever they needed, whatever hurricane victims need, and we flew it down to Andrews Air Force, Andrews Air Force Base, and not Andrews Air Force Base, I'm sorry, Hialeah, Florida, whatever's there. Anyhow, so there was that, and then I helped design part of the first responders program. I set up a distribution facility for goods and services in the event that Eastern South Carolina got hit by the big one and got, pretty well leveled. So I helped put that in place. And, I did all kinds of things, just little acts of caring. Like I said, I've always been charity minded, even if I was wrapped up in selfishness. And so as I got soberer and got better, the acts of charity increased as my knowledge and imitation of my Creator increased. There was not one great single awakening. There's a lot of little incidences that I can point to, but there's not one single lightning flash or burning bush. But what there is a series of small things that add up to a big change. Then my daughter died. She was actually a bonus daughter. And she got killed by a drug driver. And that really started my whole world collapsing around me. My wife at the time went crazy, threatened to stab me, and I'm not going to live with a partner who's going to stab me. So I sold everything and shagged ass for Southwest Florida. And I came down here, started a little pool business, was making a life, ended up, I got divorced from victim number 3. And then in September of 2018, I was given a prescription drug. Unfortunately, I cannot reveal the name of it for libel status, but this prescription drug killed my optic nerves. I now have optic nerve neuritis and neuropathy. And my right eye is totally blind. My left, I have very little definition, very little peripheral vision, and extreme photophobia. But in my journey through blindness, I noticed so many cracks in the system, so many things that were just needed to be different. First crack I noticed was medical care. Once doctors get their hooks into a visually impaired person, they're reluctant to refer them out, even though another doctor could treat them better. I think it's because of the $9,000 worth of testing we get a year. So that was the first crack I noticed. I did an informal survey amongst my blind-centered Facebook groups and vision-impaired Facebook groups. And 50% of the vision-impaired people had never even heard of a low vision specialist, let alone ever seen one. It's just a common lack of knowledge. So when I started life coaching, the first thing I do in my life coaching business is I make sure your doctor is the appropriate doctor for your condition. If you need a neuro-ophthalmologist, if you need a neuro-optometrist, whatever you need, we figure it out and we get you that help. I found a lack of education about the medical aspect of vision loss, a very serious lack of education. So it is my job to educate you. If we need retinal specialist, if we need macular specialist, whatever we need, we find out and find the particular doctor you need. That's the first tenet of my program. The next thing is we deal with the emotions caused by the situations that blindness or vision loss bring on. Plus, especially if you were sighted and then lose your vision, there's a major grieving process that goes on. And when I was going through my journey through blindness, I couldn't find anybody who could help me. The best they could do is recommend a grief counselor. A grief counselor asked me who died. I had to say nobody. He said, well, we can't really help you. My friends and family didn't understand, so they couldn't help me. Nobody could help me. I went to the Division of Blind Services. I went to Hadley University. I went through the Veterans Administration looking for somebody to help, and there was nobody. So that's part of what I do in my program now, is we deal with the emotional fallout and feedback from vision loss. We also deal with the lack of confidence. In addition to normal tips and tricks and, what have you, there's compassion and understanding in my program. I get it. I've been there. I deal with it daily, just like you. And unfortunately, I am a great rarity, if not an unheard of being in the world of vision loss, because there's nobody who does what I do. And those who do what I do can't do it from a perspective of sympathetic understanding. They don't get it because they've not been there. They don't understand how you can be looking at an iron horse with a backdrop of bushes, be hitting it with your cane and not see it. They just don't get it. Well, I get it, folks. I fully understand. One of the things that this prescription drug did is send me through hallucinations for about 6 weeks as I came down off of the drug. I was on a small dose of this drug, and then another nerve got pinched and the doctor increased my dose of Lyrica. And that's when it went on to my optic nerves. Anyhow, and once I got done with the withdrawals and the drug got out of my system, this is what I was left with. So I fully understand and relate with the problems because I deal with them too. I have been lost in my own house before. I understand trying to set a coffee cup down and not set it down on the edge and watching it fall. All those things I get. I've also had to deal with what I call the helicopter people. Oh, and by the way, I work with the families too, because the families have no clue how to deal with vision loss. They have no more idea than anybody else. They want to be helpful. They want to be supportive. They want us to maintain our independence, but they don't know how. So I've found that generally it goes into two diverse ways of handling things. The first one I'll call the helicopter. They're always buzzing around. You get up, you go to the refrigerator, and what do you want? What do you need? What can I do for you? How can I help you? I'm 50 years old. I'm looking for something to drink. Sit down. I'll figure it out. I'm still quite capable of handling my own stuff. And then there's the other type who really doesn't get it. It turns a blind eye and, says, well, it's your problem. Deal with it. No help at all. And the truth is, the right reaction is exactly in the middle. Help if I ask for it. Leave me alone if I don't. And so I work with the families for a couple of sessions to try to get them to understand families are critical to our success. And that's my whole goal. I want to help the blind and visually impaired overcome their impairment and learn to live life happy and usefully whole. That's what I am all about. And the other thing I do, quite like a mobility instructor, we do little confidence things. We start small, maybe I have you walk around the block. Or maybe I have you walk down to your coffee shop. Or maybe I help you learn to ride the bus, or whatever it is, anything to foster independence. Depending on your particular situation, the answers in the confidence course is, of course, varied and different. Maybe I help you figure out you can actually go enjoy a park, even though you can't see anymore, or whatever it is. A client determines when they've overcome their impairment. I do not. It is not my job to have all the answers. It is my job to lend empathy, understanding, accountability, and a different thought process. That's what life coaching is really all about, is helping you discover the answers that are within you. I can't tell you what's best for you, but I can help you discover what's best for you. And then I can help you implement it. That's what we do as life coaches. People ask me all the time what I do. I ask a lot of questions. I'm not here to control your life. I'm not here to tell you what to do. Because if you've come to me for help, you're over 18 years old. And if you're over 18, you're a full-grown adult. And I will help you act like it. I strip away a lot of the bull crap that we tell ourselves. I help you strip that away. But in the end, each of us are responsible for ourselves. And all of these tragedies I've been through, all of the death, the vision loss, the alcoholism, I have come through it all with grace, dignity, and a smile. I am genuinely happy today. I am definitely useful. Not only useful to my clients, I'm useful in the real world as well. In fact, like tomorrow morning, I go volunteer for the homeless for 4 hours. I help serve them breakfast and wash their clothes and all that kind of stuff. I run a van ministry for my church. I'm also involved in their recovery program. So, in addition to that, I'm useful in the county. I do charity concerts for various nonprofits. The last one I did was, it was called the Rebels and Riots Tour. I bought them to Tampa, Florida. It was Molly Hatchet, Blackfoot, and Quiet Riot. So, I get to mix with some pretty big names. And life is just good today. That's all. Life is just good. The name of my company is Thriving with Vision Loss. And that's exactly what I help people do. I help them thrive with vision loss. You can look me up on Facebook under Thriving with Vision Loss. Or in the next few days, you'll be able to see me at thrivingwithvisionloss.com.
That was about, I have so many questions, so many comments. And the first thing is, was about, I've been podcasting for like 3 years. That was about the most amazing, beautiful, and spiritual introduction I've ever heard in my existence of being a podcaster. On top of that, that was just about the best introduction I've ever heard listening to someone talk to me. Has anyone ever told you, Mr. Carroll, you would really do well as a podcaster yourself? Because like I was telling you over on Messenger, you have a beautiful voice. You have a beautiful way of telling your life's journey and story. Have you thought about starting a podcast? Let's just start there.
I absolutely have, and have bought the equipment. I'm just trying to get my life coaching things sorted out before I add something else on.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely giving you the green light to add podcasting to your repertoire because you really know how to you know how to talk, and you have a message that the world should learn from for sure. Of all of your experiences that you've had, of everything basically from your childhood till now, quite frankly, with everything that's gone wrong and all the mistakes you chose to make, or everything that went South Pole, whether it was your fault or not, I am one who believes that God takes us on a spiritual journey. And what is the if you were to stop and you know and think and tell someone, and if they ask you, so what is the purpose of why God has put you through the ringer here? What is the purpose of all these mistakes that you have made or have happened to you? And what is the one life lesson that you now understand intellectually to be a more spiritual person and a stronger person? What's really going on here? Tell me.
The purpose of life, we are put here to experience everything and to serve others. That is what it's all about. Jesus Christ said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, love your neighbor as yourself. That is the summation of what life is right there. Now, the lesson, if I could boil everything down to just one lesson, it would be happiness is a choice. And a subtext to that would be life happens for you, not to you. You know, I could sit in my misery and be perfectly justified in that. You know, I've had all these things happen. I'm now a blind guy. Lord, I'm short, I'm fat, I'm bald. You know, I've got all these strikes against me. I've got every reason to give up in this world. And I could do that. But why? What's next? You know, there's always something to be gained from every experience and every person you meet. That's just the way it is. Do I like what all has happened to me? No. But it gives me an end to serve people. I can now serve the blind and vision impaired community. I can serve parents who have lost children. I can serve survivors of suicide. You know, I can serve those who have had abusive childhoods. So what God has done is prepared me for situations. And I don't necessarily think he set the situations up, but he's taught me how to deal with them. You know, I take particular offense to the prosperity gospel preachers. They just bother me. Nowhere does it say that God will make your life easy and fun and give you all kinds of wealth if you just follow him. In fact, exactly the opposite. In this world, you should have trouble. But be of good cheer because I have overcome this world. So it tells you right there, you're going to have troubles. You know, and the trick is how you deal with them. Life is all about perspective, my friend. You know, your perspective determines how you think about a situation, and how you think about a situation determines how you act or react. Well, change your perspective, change your attitude, change your actions, change your life. I liken it to this, and I've used this example on perspective hundreds of times. You get out of the car at Walmart, you see a guy smacking a woman upside her head. I mean, just beating the bloody crap out of her. How do you feel about that guy? Chances are you want to intervene. You want to stop this mess. So you start moving a little closer, change your perspective a little bit. You see her hair's on fire and he's using whatever he can to put it out. How do you feel about him now? Same actions, same scenario, two different perspectives.
Yeah, perfect answer. Yeah. And that's all extremely valuable. I'm a young person. I forget if I told you, so I'll tell you again. I'm 32 years old, and I see a very high number of blind people in many Facebook groups who have lost vision as adults. In my case, I was born blind, but I see many people who've lost vision later in life, and I notice that they really view it as a loss, And I've tried to tell people, and sometimes it's better received than others, that, well, if you lost your vision and now you're blind, well, that's life. To me, being blind is nothing really special. It's something, it's who I am to some degree, but it doesn't define me. And I think that's really hard for, sighted people to understand, that vision loss is really not the end of the world. I guess what are some, since I see so many blind people struggling to cope with vision loss, why don't we break down some of the ingredients that you said when you were talking about doctors and the practice of medicine? I think what you said was both very interesting and very helpful to me, the public, the world. In my case, I have been blessed with the best doctors in the world for glaucoma and cornea and things like that. But the majority of the world doesn't have that. And I'm forever grateful for it. But yeah, you're very right. A lot of doctors say go to a low vision specialist, and people don't really know what that is. So yeah, let's break down some of the terms you defined. So let's break down what when you say that you help people to actually direct them to the right doctor to go to for their visual situation, their blindness. Explain it further for me. How does that exactly work? Let's go with that for a bit.
If you have a diagnosis, whatever your diagnosis is, we can figure out who would be the best specialist for your diagnosis. I have seen many, many cases where ophthalmologists are trying to treat and help optic nerve injuries. They are not qualified. There are specialists for that. They are called neuro-ophthalmologists. There's also neuro-optometrist. An optometrist has been through optometry school, where ophthalmologist has been through both optometry school and medical school. Ophthalmologists are practicing doctors who specialize in vision. Optometrists are people who specialize in vision. But if an optometrist gets a hold to you, he can diagnose diseases of the eye and so forth. But there's a lot of things he can't do that an ophthalmologist can. And if there's an optic nerve problem involved, which is quite common, glaucoma actually causes optic nerve issues because the pressure in the eye presses on the optic nerve and causes it to distort and eventually stop making good connection. So if there's an optic nerve involved, we get you to an optic nerve specialist. If your problem is in the macular of your eye, we get you to a macular specialist or a retinal specialist. There's some like 76 different eye specialists. who concentrate on different parts of the eye, lens specialists, eyelid specialists even. So what we do is we figure out who is the best in your area for you to go to, and just make sure you're getting the proper medical care.
Yeah. Yeah. And you say the we, and the we is your organization, your right. Yeah. So yeah, expand a little bit more. It seems like that organization would be some sort of a nonprofit that you started. So really expand on that and tell me more about exactly how that works. The other thing is, so yeah, what would have been, obviously you cannot and should not and don't need to say names, but what have been some interesting things you've learned through working with families dealing with a family member who's going through vision loss? Tell me about that.
Well, the organization is actually not a not-for-profit. It is actually how I make a living. I looked at not-for-profits, and I couldn't do the things I needed to do and stay within the law for a nonprofit. If I were a nonprofit, I couldn't advise you to seek another specialist, because nonprofits I would have to be a doctor in order to do that. That's number one. Then there are just so many laws governing it that this is a for-profit business. However, even though it's a for-profit business, don't let that scare you. Don't let money be the only thing that stands between you and me. I will offer scholarships. I will give help for free if it's warranted, or we can work something out where you donate so many hours to whatever your particular charity is in exchange for my help. Money is not an object to be chased. It's a tool to be used. Money is just a way to give respect. So, even if you do, if you have some money and you want to pay, and we have payment plans, we have all kinds of stuff. And now, what was the other part of the question you asked?
What has been, no worries, sure. What have been some interesting experiences you've had specifically working with family members of, who have a family member, who's going through vision loss? What are some interesting lessons you've learned through doing that work?
Well, first off, the biggest lesson is, because my eyes don't work, don't mean my ears don't. People have a tendency to talk very, very loudly, almost to the point of shouting, thinking it somehow will help us see better. When in fact my dad used to say, turn the radio down, I can't see to drive. That's been a major thing. And, the fear involved in the families. They are scared of us because they don't know how to react to us. They don't know how to guide us. I mean, obviously, the proper way is them dropping an elbow. They drop their left elbow, or they drop their right elbow, I grab it with my left hand. So I'm still free to use my guide cane. Seems simple enough. Nobody knows how to do that, and they jerk and they shove on you, and it's just a basic lack of understanding. They don't get how light's shining in our eyes. It's just painful. They don't understand how much contrast is a factor. And they don't get why we can get lost in our own house. Well, you've lived there 15 years. Why can't you find your way around? Well, it's like anything else. If you don't know where you're starting from, how in the world are you going to get to where you're going? So there's all kinds of things like that. And, it's none of it's mean. I think people genuinely want to help. They just don't know how, so they just trot along doing the best they can. And unfortunately, the best they can is not good for us. I have seen, like I say, the pit masters just turn their back on their blind folks. And I have seen the other end of the scale too, where they enable them way too much. I was working with one family in particular. This was a 32-year-old man. He had opportunities upon opportunities. He wouldn't take them. He used blindness as an excuse. And Daddy was still paying all his bills. I mean, all of them. He was working a little part-time job, but he was spending all his money on drugs.
Ugh.
Dad was enabling him because Dad felt sorry that he was vision impaired as a result of a genetic defect. So Dad felt guilty and was enabling this boy to death. Fortunately, I stepped in and, I changed Daddy's attitude. I don't think Junior liked it much, but it is what it is. I spoke truth, and I'm sorry, but I'm as lazy as you'll let me be. I mean, that's just me. That's my personality. If I can get you to do it for me, I will. So my wife all the time asks me, do you really need help or are you making excuses? Well, in this case, I really need help, hon, and here's why. Yeah. Or you're right, hon, I'm making excuses because I don't wanna. So that's a common factor too. Motivation is a wonderful thing. Motivation lasts all of about 6 minutes. Discipline is the key. And I firmly believe that a blind individual can do anything he wants to, with the exception of drive. There is nothing that vision impairment can stop you from if you want it enough. The motto of my life is improvise, adapt, and overcome. And that's exactly what I do. I improvise, adapt, and overcome. So, and I take and I pass this along to my clients. And we look at different ways of doing things. Some of them may be painful to look at, but in the end, they're effective. And nothing gives you a sense of accomplishment better than accomplishing something. And not only do the small victories mean they're victories, they also spur you on because, well, you could do that. Why can't you do this? You could get to the coffee shop. Why can't you go to the mall? Things along those lines. So victory breeds victory breeds victory. And that's what I instill into my clients and help them see that they are capable of anything. If somebody else has done it, there's no reason you can't. If you have the drive and desire. It takes work, it takes effort. And we as human beings don't like work or effort. But if we do the work and the effort, it's some kind of spiritual law that, the Creator rewards our efforts. And we will be blessed with an abundant life as long as we put the effort in.
As it relates to that man who's the same age as me, I'm 32. Whatever became of that person? Did you ever figure out if that man became successful? overcame his addiction, got away from his father. Did you ever come to figure out what became of him?
Well, I still talk with Daddy on occasion. The boy's now supporting himself. Whether he overcame his addiction or not, Daddy doesn't know. But the boy is supporting himself. He has assumed his rightful place as an adult, and Daddy's not on the hook for everything. So the young man doesn't talk with me much, but Daddy does. Daddy was more grateful than the kid was.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully in 10 years or sometime, hopefully you'll get a call from that then 42-year-old kid. And they'll say,
Right?
Chris, you were right, Mr. Carroll. Thank you for what you did, is what I would hope they would say. But I certainly appreciate you. Thank you, Mr. Carroll, for what you did to that and for that person. And we hope that he will eventually see that as a blessing, either a blessing either way or a blessing in disguise, but a blessing either way. Yeah.
One thing I do understand about humans is we don't know our own worth. Each and every human being is a straight up miracle and a miracle worker. If you think about what a miracle is, a suspension in natural laws. All of us do miracles every day. When we hold a glass, we suspend the law of gravity. And that's a rather simplistic view, but it's absolute truth. When we make somebody else's day better through just a smile, that's all it takes. And the thing about it is, if we do good towards others, we do good towards ourselves. I have never helped an individual that I haven't felt better afterwards. I've never had a session with a client that I didn't feel better afterwards. I open myself up for blessings. And that's what I teach people, Yes. All you have to do, open yourself up, and Creator makes it happen. I don't know how, I don't know why. I know the what.
Interesting. Have you ever helped someone? I mean, I know I'm asking a weird question here, but to throw you a curveball, as if you haven't been already thrown enough curveballs. But have you ever helped someone and looking back, you help someone, and let's say 6 months later, you look back and you say to yourself, I actually regret helping that person. Has that ever happened?
Never.
Never, really?
Never. I may regret some of the things that happened. I may regret some of the things I did or helped them to see, but I don't regret taking the action necessary. Everybody needs help from time to time. There is not one person who doesn't need help. And if I can be that person for somebody, then I've done my job. I am not responsible for the results. I am responsible for the actions. And if I give it my all and do my best to love that person and try to help meet their needs, then I have fulfilled my purpose in their life, whatever it is. What happens is between them and their God. They can take issue with him or her.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, that's really fascinating. Yet you've never looked back and regretted helping someone. I mean, especially, I hope it would never happen this way, but I just meant, have you ever helped someone, and you thought they were going to do and use all the help you gave them, all the tools you gave them, and then you researched it later and discovered that they just kind of blew you off. It's kind of what I meant by that. But hey, if you can tell me that you've never regretted being helpful, then that's a very good sign. And that also shows that all people need help, as you say. So you're very right. And that's extremely fascinating. Yeah.
Well, not being responsible for the results, if I do nothing else, I plant a seed that somebody else can come along watering, they'll grow. It's, again, I'm not wrapped up in responsibility. It is my job to carry the message, not the mess.
Right. Extremely, extremely fascinating and extremely valuable. How many other podcasts have you been on, by the way?
3, I think.
Yeah. If you don't mind me asking, who have you spoken to in the podcast space? I'm just purely curious who else you've spoken to.
One of them was called Blind Vine. One of them was Artificial AI for the Blind, Sean Keenan. And then you. So I've done 3 of them. You're number 3.
Interesting.
I actually got started in this journey about 6 months ago with this portion. I first had to get myself under control, and then I had to figure out the problems and how to solve them. In addition to my vision issues, I also have major chronic pain issues. I have 8 discs up and down my back that are torn, ruptured, or herniated. And so that makes it impossible for me to work anywhere. And so I had to make myself a job. It's essentially what I did. Yes, it's a job I love. Yes, it's a job that, nobody else does. And that's part of the program, is learning your skills and learning how to put your skills to good use. Each of us have different skills. Whether we can see or not doesn't matter. We have different skills, and we can put those skills to use in different ways. And by some creative thinking, we can find stuff to do that pleases us, whether it's for a living or whether it's an avocation. And if we learn to do what pleases us, each one of us has something we can do 8, 10, 12, 14 hours a day, never get tired of it, and look forward to going in the next day. For me in particular, that's helping people. For some others, it may be technology-based. It may be building houses, whatever it is. But part of a life coach's job is to help you discover the talents you have and maximize those, and put you in a situation where those talents are both needed and used.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow, what a journey! What an amazing person! Outstanding episode. I always like to walk towards a conclusion of an episode by saying thank you, Mr. Carroll, for joining us today. Like I tell all my guests, this has been an absolutely fascinating conversation. Learning from, your experience is an experience that's worth it, and that's worth learning from, and worth remembering without any doubt in my mind. I'm sure you have some questions for Aaron Richmond and Aaron's opinion. So I know you're going to ask a great question, but if you can ask me only one question to really make me sweat, to see if I'm worth my salt as a podcaster, what do you really want to know about me?
You mentioned earlier that I should go into podcasting. In fact, I believe you said it'd be in my best interest or something like that.
True, indeed, yes.
What's the best way to do this?
Well, the best way is to basically create audio files or YouTube or both. Just like everything else in life, it takes years of practicing it, practicing the art and practicing the way that you organize your show. But basically, you create a profile on a hosting server for hosting podcasts. And then after you do that, you start basically building up your portfolio of audio recordings and learning how to edit them. All of these things, I would be more than honored and more than pleased to speak to you about it off air, of course, but more than happy to help you, obviously. There's a couple apps that I use, couple tools that I use at my disposal to create a video on YouTube, and this live stream becomes the video. And then the audio that we're recording becomes, well, the audio that you would hear on, say, Spotify or Apple or iHeart or Google. And that's basically how you get into it. The question, because you asked a beautiful question, the other question that you should be thinking about is how to cultivate a network of guests over a period of time. And I will tell you, just like life is hard, that's hard. That is very, very, very difficult to get a lineup of incredible guests that can last you several years, as I have been blessed with that privilege to have guests that have lasted me several years. And that is a blessing. No, zero doubt about it. In all the beauty of this artwork here, I think I lost my train of thought there too for a second. Has anyone told you, Mr. Carroll, you are lucky to be alive? Has anyone told you, you're lucky to be alive? Your life is like a book. Oh yeah. When's that book coming out? Because don't tell me that your life's not a book. Your life is a book. You do realize that, right?
It has been discussed. I don't know when it's coming out. I don't know when it's going to be written or even who it's going to be written by, but it has been discussed.
Well, I think we should stop discussing it, and I think you should get on over to that computer, that Pages document, and start typing it up, because your life has been a book that you have overcome, and that I got to tell you, I take zero pleasure, and I know you take zero pleasure. I took no pleasure in hearing about all the highly disturbingly saddening things that you have overcome. That's not what we. Well, that's nobody wants to hear that, but but the fact that you have the courage to tell the world that really is, in an odd way, actually uplifting. And what I mean is, for me to hear someone older than me talking to me about that is really helpful to me. I've been through challenges in my own life as a young person. Fortunately, none of the things that you have been through have happened to me, fortunately, because, quite frankly, a lot of bad stuff happened to you, but everything you've said is still very helpful and very medicinal. And I've heard so many similar stories, but your story is the most, I'm not going to say most special, but you have material. You have definitely ticked that box for experience. You've experienced living. That is like a slap in my face. That is your life is an experience. That's for sure. And I just can't thank you enough for sharing. Really. But what you would do is you would get onto a hosting platform, create audio content, and then go over to YouTube. And there's a lot of theories. I think with your beautiful voice and beautiful story, I would tell you that, really you need to have a presence on, the audio side on Spotify and platforms like it. And then you need to let people watch you on YouTube. But that's just me. I don't know. Anyway. Yeah.
It's as good advice as any. It's the best advice I've gotten today about it.
Well, I'm glad because that's not, I gotta kind of be humble with you. Me telling you to go to Spotify, Spotify's not very good advice. Okay. Me saying create a podcast and upload it to Spotify. Anyone can do it. But my point, and I know you get the point is only special people who have overcome it all, keep doing it. And I know you get that point. That's the trick. The trick is you are the gift. Zero doubt in my mind. And then you use tools to help you. But like we were saying before, you have to have the follow through and the motivation. And only the most motivated people keep doing it for years. And I'm, in my opinion, overly motivated. Anyway, you have a subscriber to your podcast, and their name is Aaron's Opinion. That's a promise. That's a promise I'm keeping, because I'm going to listen to you. No problem.
It'll be coming very, very shortly. I'm looking about 3 months out.
All right.
After I get everything squared away. I've already bought the mic and the equipment. So
cool, man. Cool. So good. All right.
But I will leave you with this one thought. Go out and have the best day you want to have. Your life is not dependent on outside circumstances. It is dependent on inward attitude. And you can find that at thrivingwithvisionloss.com, and also Thriving with Vision Loss on Facebook.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, everybody. We hope that you stay safe out there from all over the world. Thanks so much, everyone. As I like to say on my podcast, do you know how I end an episode?
I do not.
And that is fine. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back next time. Help one person today. Help 1 million people tomorrow. To the YouTube audience who is still with us, thank you. If you have survived all this knowledge and all this whirlwind of an interview all the way up into this point, wow. Thank you for joining us. Like it if you like the video. Dislike it, because as Dustin Lindbergh likes to say, disliking it actually helps move the video forward. I have a little bit of a joke about that. So don't forget, subscribe to the channel, tickle that bell notification to know when we go live next. All right then. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Carroll, Chris Carroll, a forever member of the Aaron's Opinion family. We'll talk soon, but you have a very safe and a very helpful and a very blessed evening. Help one person today. Help 1 million people tomorrow. I am.
That's the goal.
There you go.